morning to you wherever you're watching us from. This is Atlantic Television Network. Welcome to Atlantic Blowout. It's a beautiful new week, and Atlantic Blowout is a syndicated live program of the network featuring chit-chatting and conversations and special interest topics on news, events and stories through correspondence reports, expert opinion and stakeholders analysis. What's at our table for you today? We'll go to Lagos State, where it's stated that government gives notice of demolition. And then we'll talk about education. ASU again, not in the news. ASU laments sack of members. And then on health, Nigerians spend $1 billion yearly on medical tourism. On security, army to strengthen relations with public. And then we'll look at electricity, consumers rise, NBS. And then on crude oil, IOCs are frustrating our operations. This was a statement made by Dangote. We'll introduce our guests and delve straight into the stories after the short timeouts. Please stay with us.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on-the-spot news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
Every day, our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics.
Nobody's ambition is what the blood.
I have fought very firmly.
Natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody, and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human trafficker.
Honorable
You are a human
They are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
Thank you so much for staying right here with us. We have with us in the studio Ambassador Ekie, C. Ekie. He is a public affairs analyst. There's something about this name that calls me each time I call it. As I call the name, it calls me. Good morning to you.
My pleasure being here again.
Welcome
so glad.
Again.
Happy New Week to you.
Ashes on the news again.
Yeah, my friends.
All right, let's go straight to it. I think our first story is coming from Lagos State, where the Lagos State government has issued a 14-day removal notice to owners of buildings and structures in Sangotedo area of Lekki and Okota, Isolo, which were built on drainage channels. Now, according to the ultimatum, the owners must remove the structures within the notice period or face demolition. And then the Commissioner for the Environment and Water Resources, Mr. Tokumbo Wahab, has announced this on Sunday during an extensive inspection tour of various contravention sites and ongoing drainage enforcement projects in Agob Halaswe, Isholo, Sangotedo, Lekki, and Ikoyi areas of the state. Now, Wahab has stressed that the Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu-led administration in the state, was actually determined to restore sanity and would not fold its arms in stopping various environmental infractions. Now, they have issued notice. This is not the first time we're seeing a notice being issued. Recently, we've been seeing a lot of these in the news where buildings that were erected on drainage channels have been asked to take it off or in fact move out because they will be demolished, right? We've seen lots of videos like that on social media where people are saying, oh, we're not giving any notice, and then the government comes and says, we gave you a notice. So now we're seeing this particular story where it's said that the government gives them, you know, a notice. So I believe that period when that happened, if we had seen stories that the government gave notice before it happened, then people would not come out and say they weren't giving any notice. In fact, some people say they were giving 2 days notice for those buildings to be, for them to vacate the buildings. But let's get your thoughts on this story.
Well, it's quite saddening. Another presentation of poor institutions of government. Now, most times when government takes decision on her citizens, this kind of decision looks as if there are people you want to go on political asylum. In other words, you must live within this notice to wherever you wishes to go. These are your citizens, for crying out loud. Now, the first question, most of those buildings, I'm sure, have government approvals.
I don't think anyone can erect a building without approval.
Exactly. And then you have collected the money for the approvals. Are you going to refund back the people their money? The revenue you generated in the period when they were constructing these structures. So, one, you have to refund them back. Number two, treat these people as your citizens. You don't treat them like people who you want them to go on asylum because they have made a mistake that you conspired with them when they were constructing that building. That's a waterway. I'm sure the Ministry of Lands and Environment, when they were giving approvals, the urban development, they knew that this place is waterway. And then you gave them approval because of the revenue you want to generate at that time. Now you have finished enjoying the revenue.
Is it really because of the revenue they wanted to generate? Are we also looking at it in the aspect of some representatives of government who were probably on the table when those people went for approval, who might have siphoned those monies, knowing that those places that are being allocated to these individuals or approval is being given for them to build on could be drainage channels?
No. You see, those money being paid are receipted for. Okay. So I'm sure government got that money and we are careless about it because it was not yet, you know, environmental hazard as it is right now.
So you don't see corruption playing out there in any way?
That's why I said it's conspiracy. Those who were in government or who are in government when those approvals were being done, it was done with the intent of revenue generation. And then now you have generated the revenue. Then today you have now come up to say, well, this is wrong. So those who built houses are only going to be victimized. Whether they were right or wrong, I want to say that, one, I'm sure the government was weak, failed. Something went wrong in those building approvals. Number two, if you have generated revenue through them when they were constructing, refund them back with maximum interest. Number three, see these citizens as your people. Don't give 40 days, 14 days ultimatum because you feel that these guys are political asylum or people who should go on asylum to wherever they wish to. That's very wrong of government.
What do you think the government should do in that?
Now, I know that the governor of Lagos State is a civilized person. He has a humanitarian heart. So my appeal to the government and the governor of Lagos State is that have a meeting with this landlord, look out for alternative means for their relocation. I'm not saying they must remain there if it is causing environmental hazard. Their pleasure should not be the detriment of others because they need shelter. So I think one of the responsibilities of government is to protect lives and property. So I think in a way of protecting these lives because they need shelter. So have a meeting with this landlord and then think of alternative measure for their relocation. If it means the government to give them resources to go and rent a place on the interim, government should do that because they are part of our citizens. So because most of them who are residing in that place, imagine if he's a retiree, he's no longer earning salary, or someone who just got a contract and then decided to construct that structure, and then government is saying because it's on a waterway, you have to...
Which is actually against the law.
Which is against the law. When you watched it, you supervised it, you benefited from it, and now they should be the only victim of that conspiracy. So my appeal to government is, and the governor of Lagos State, which I think is a nice person, have a meeting with this landlord, look out for their relocation, arrangement, support them to the best you can, so that every Lagosian will enjoy the waterway goodness, and then those who are resident in that place who are already a victim should now have alternative accommodation.
These are for buildings that probably have been erected before now, or constructed before now. Now, we've had cases in other states where people are building. The building is being constructed, and then government comes and says, this is not the right thing to do. This building is being constructed at the wrong place, or maybe something went wrong and they demolished it. I remember one big man from, was it Delta State, who was, his video was actually trending online where he said, look, they're demolishing his building. He was just constructing it. And he said how much he had spent on that building. It was not a joke. So how do we put an end to this, where buildings are approved, and then at the end of the day, it turns out to be that there was some sort of conspiracy somewhere or corruption, and then the approval was given to the wrong site?
Well, I think these are the measures why the governor or whoever that is responsible should also find out what actually played out. But I also want to advise any developer, you need to have a lawyer, a good lawyer, and also respect the opinion of your legal counsel. Also, you need to go to government, in fact, whether government, what do you call it, master plan or whatever, developmental plan, you know that this is waterway. And of course, there is a law against building in a waterway. So why even thinking of a waterway?
Why would anybody want to build on a waterway knowing it's
Well,
waterway?
there are some love.
We don't give ourselves approvals for our buildings.
Good. So that's why we are saying that such government should investigate what transferred. And we are also saying that if you are in the agencies or ministry that has to do with these approvals, once you know that there is an aftermath effect on this, don't even do it, no matter the pressures. And for those who love to build close to the river, you mustn't build on a waterway. You can go to lands where it's close to the river. Those ones, nobody will say is a waterway. But building where water has to go through, obstructing that the movement.
That's what I'm telling you, Ambassador Ike. I don't think anybody would know that this is a waterway. And
No,
they'll
some
buy
know,
the
some
land,
know.
and then they'll build on it.
Some
and
know.
who gave them approval to build on the
So,
waterway?
you know, sometimes some people feel that I can find my way in as much as I have money. I can find my way in as much as I have a political contacts, so nothing will happen. So most times
that's what should be looked into. If there are certain individuals who feel like they have the money to just maneuver things, they are actually giving those monies to people, right? And then these approvals are in turn given to them, right? That's what you're implying. So if we have cases like that, it simply means that our checks and balances in those areas or those agencies, those aspects should actually be strengthened.
Exactly.
So that we don't have wrong approvals given. And then if the case is discovered like that, it should be investigated.
Yes.
And the people involved should be prosecuted. Because if a building is erected on a waterway, it is not even safe for the individuals actually resident in that building. Now let's look at this story about ASU now. The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has said that no fewer than 400 members of its have been sacked by proprietors of members of institutions who prosecuted them for fighting for their rights and the interests of the university system. Now, ASU has said that the intimidation and persecution were common in state-owned institutions, as governors who have visited or visitors to these institutions don't tolerate opposing views and policies, which lecturers saw as not being in the interest of educational system in their respective universities. Now, the immediate past chairman of ASU, University of Lagos chapter, Dr. Dele Ashiru, he disclosed this while speaking with journalists at the end of leadership training workshop that was organized by the Union for New Executive of the university's branch that was held in Ogun State branch. Now, while stating that the union has been standing against persecution and would continue to fight for the genuine interests of its members, Ashiru, however, said that the union would also not tolerate any unethical behavior from any of its members. Now, let's go back to the beginning of that story where it has actually told us what ASU is saying now, that some of the governors of some of these state-owned universities, or the states where these universities are resident, do not welcome opposing views. They don't tolerate opposing views and policies. And these lecturers, on the other hand, when they feel like something is not right, they stand, according to them, in the interest of the educational system and in the interest of the university system. And now back to this. They are lamenting the sack of their members. Up to 400 members have been sacked due to all of these opposing views that ASU had time and time again.
Well, sad story. I cannot really justify those who were sacked and those who the government that sacked them. Now, as an employee, you must also understand that the opinion of your employer is superior to your own opinion. I think that's where most of the ASU members need to get it right. The government is your employer. So for you to be employed and you want to frustrate the business of your employer.
So fighting for the rights of the universities or for the interests of education is being...
You see, when you talk about fighting for, I think it's not a better word. If you say advocating for the betterment of the university system, But what is the betterment over the period, or over the years, where ASU will go to strike close to 8 months, 9 months, frustrating the students of such institutions? You are aware of students who are supposed to graduate in 4 years, ended up in 7 years. So in as much as what they are advocating for seems to be okay in their eyes, government, state government also look at it to say no. Because in those cases, even when they are on strike, they were expecting salaries. So government feels that no, we can't continue to frustrate our children this way. So if you want to work in this kind of working environment with this kind of policies, go ahead. But if you continue to breach the peace and the process of learning in our state institutions, we will sack you. So I think it's calls for wisdom. Where your own right begins, where your own right ends, that's where the next man's right begins. So ASU members, I want to call on you all to understand that government also have some level of rights over you. So don't always think that your right is supreme. Don't always think that you must hold government to ransom. Holding government to ransom is holding the students to ransom.
Some of the things that ASU have been asking for are very basic things that they should not even go on strike for. Things like salary, things like funding for the universities. Basic things that should ordinarily be taken care of. These are the things that ASU has to go up and talk about and then say, oh, we've been talking about this thing, nothing's been done, I think we would have to go on strike.
You see, like I said last time, that the issue of strike has become very interesting to some ASU members, not all, because of the private businesses they run, because of their overseas trips and all of that.
Like you have said, some, not all.
Yes.
It also shows us that ASU as a body, right, you've talked about some lectures, ASU as a body are saying that this is for the betterment of the educational system. Now, they have lined out or listed out the reason they are going on strike. It has never been private. It has always been public for the public to see. This is why we are going on strike. Because the things need to change. Do you understand what I'm saying now? That's the reason ASU sometimes go on strike when they go on strike. So for you to actually say that they are fighting, or some of them are doing it for their private business, that's just some of them, and that's on the other side. But it doesn't take away the fact that the reasons are always open to us.
You see, for me, I commend state governments who have taken measures to stop strike in their government institutions. And that's why if you watch well, most people are sending their children to state government universities, because the chances of them going to strike is being reduced. So, which is wonderful. Now you have governing council. You have the Senate. That's why I appreciated the autonomy of the universities. Because to a reasonable extent, they have a kind of a governing system. But I assume that the ASU is not even respecting those governing systems. Because if your demands are also sent to the governing council, to the Senate, it could be looked upon. Now, then it will be treated in a very matured and civil way. Now, I also want to discourage that spirit of unionism. The spirit of unionism should not be very much effective in a learning institution. Because of course,
they speak with one voice, there's
no of course, you are aware that students who, protest against some of the ills in the universities are being sent away from the university. They are being victimized. So if you go to most of these schools, the student union government is not even effective. Because even them don't like such kind of...
Is that something that should be encouraged?
From ASU or the students?
No, the students aspect now, because you're using that as a yardstick.
No, what I'm saying is that university system don't even appreciate when student union group or governments protest against what is wrong in the university that they are doing. Most of them have been victimized, we know. So you don't like what your students are doing, but you want to do it to government because you feel that government should enjoy every of your protest and strike and move. So we are saying that nobody likes opposition. I'm not saying that what the demands of ASO is bad, but my own is that let us put these children first of all, the students. Let us also look at how this educational system can be more resourceful. Like I always said, that the issue of ASO asking for increment in salary is not necessary for now. What ASO should be looking for is the review of our academic content.
That's part of the reasons they usually go on strike. But don't you think that it's high time the government focuses on education and solve some of this problem that keeps making ASU go on strike year in, year out?
Yeah, so let me use this opportunity right now. First, to agree that government should, give the university autonomy so that they can manage the institution, so that they can generate revenues and also take good care of the welfare of their staffs, so that the burden will also be relieved from the federal government.
Talking about, you continue with that, you continue with your advocacy, but talking about raising revenue and all of that to run themselves, the universities, and I remember the Senate visited Uni Abuja, they on strike, and the Senate visited them and told them about their strike, telling them to call it off and all of that, and they also advised them. Now, I need your thoughts on this. They've advised ASU or universities now, to think of other alternatives to raise funds instead of solely or almost solely depending on the government for funding of the universities.
So you see, that's what we're advocating.
That's not autonomy.
No. You see,
that's still saying the government will own the government will own control of the funds of the universities, but you now as universities look for alternative means. That's not autonomy.
You see, the university has also been looking for alternative means. But the problem is that most of them are selfish with what they generate. They don't use it for the upkeep and the development of the institutions.
That's a very broad statement.
Yes, it's broad. Most lecturers know that they are generating money from their students, of course. Every semester, they know.
We're talking about the university.
That's when we say university is not spirit, it's human being. We are talking about the resources that is...
No, you're talking about the resources that the lecturers generate from the students individually. We all know that that's an individual resource. That's an individual
wonderful
funding.
Yes, individual funding.
Now, funding their pockets individually.
You see, which is wrong. Now, there is nothing wrong. Nothing absolutely wrong. I know that most of these universities get intervention funds.
And we're also talking about investments. The universities invest.
Because they are not productive. That's why the complaint is every day. The university is supposed to be a production ground where they can have farms. Which some of them do. Yes, what kind of farm and what is the usage of that resources?
Maybe you'd have to
so no, that's why we are saying that there is some level of insincerity, unfaithfulness in the revenue that they generate.
So if you are calling for autonomy now, and you have already stated that some of these universities, the revenue they generate, they're not being sincere with it, don't you think that's what will play out if they have autonomy?
It's not absolute autonomy. You have autonomy and you also have absolute autonomy. In this case, they will have autonomy.
To do what?
To run the institution, but not absolute autonomy. Where the absolute autonomy is not given to them, it means that the Ministry of Education will still supervise them. The federal government still owns the university, but they are saying, run this university with these policies.
It comes back to the question that I asked now. with the states that they are in right at the moment,
yes,
we are saying, or you are saying that the revenues, even the revenues they generate, that they're not even investing it in the universities, back in the universities.
Yes.
That they're not, some of these universities are not being sincere with the revenues that they generate. And now you're saying give them this level, like you have said, the level of autonomy now. If they are giving this level of autonomy, do you not still see this playing out even more?
You see, that's why the minds of the university managers or the academic institution managers have to be renewed. With the kind of mind that most of them have, even if federal government gives them trillions and billions, it will still be useless. So what I'm appealing is that, one, for instance, the resources that lecturers generate, if they generate those resources for the purpose of making that department to work well, I think you will see improvements. But because they generate that resources to buy cars for themselves, to have a more pleasurable life and comfortable life, that they think their salary is not good enough. That's why we are having problems. So my own is that you are already generating revenue from handout and all that, sorting and all of that. So why are you asking for more money?
Wow.
So be asking students to generate those resources, hence you are compelling them to have it. So if their parents are able to give, let those resources be used to maintain that department for the student to have the right tools for their training.
We all know that this is not legal. And it's not something that some of these universities encourage. Lecturers making handouts compulsory. So even the lecturers that are doing it, it's not open. They do it undercover. That's for some of the lecturers that are doing it. So saying that the university is generating funds by lecturers selling handouts, if some of these lecturers are reported, they might be sanctioned because it's not something that some of these universities encourage.
You see, we are saying that.
So that's not even a, revenue generation.
No, what we are trying to encourage here is that departments of our universities, if they are resourceful, they can generate revenue. For instance, the electrical department of a particular university can bid for a contract of a particular building, can bid for a contract of government projects, and then they go and deliver and execute it, and that profits that contractor would have generated goes to the institution. The civil engineering department can bid for the building of the construction of a particular project, both to private individuals, to organizations and government. If they bid and they succeed, right, they can also generate revenue for their department. Likewise to agricultural department, they can, get a farm, develop that farm, get the product, sell it, at the end of it, they will generate revenue. So what I'm appealing is that what the Senate is saying is actually right. The university should begin to think of how to generate revenue, not to muzzle the students. Like I said the last time, that government, give us. If they give you the autonomy to run the university, generate revenue, maintain the welfare of your staffs, but if it will not be a burden on the student, because at the end of the day, because most will not think out of the box, it will yield to increment of school fees, increment of pay, not thinking outside of the box, like the Senate is saying. So like I'm suggesting, this department...
That means you're no longer asking for autonomy now for universities.
No. We have autonomy, we have absolute autonomy.
Nobody is talking about absolute autonomy.
No, what they are asking for is autonomy. That's what ASU is asking for. They are not asking for absolute autonomy. So I say, and I'm supporting that autonomy should be given to the universities, but not absolute autonomy. Because where we restrict the absolute autonomy is to see enable government to checkmate some of the SSCs that may not be healthy for the universities. So for me, the autonomy is welcome, but not absolute autonomy. Of course, ASU is not asking for absolute autonomy, so autonomy is okay.
All right, then the sack of 400 members of ASU?
Well, I think it's from different institutions, and we do not really know why they were sacked. And I'm sure if they were unlawfully sacked, the law gives them the empowerment to challenge such sack. Now, if they were wrongly sacked, they can challenge the government. They can challenge their institution. Are you getting it? For wrongly sacking them. But if they were justifiably sacked, I think that ASU should appeal on their behalf. Look at the reasons why they were sacked, because sometimes somebody will say, I'm being sacked because I joined in protest. I'm being sacked because I used to condemn what they are doing. I'm being sacked and no verification. So I think I'm calling on ASU to properly investigate on some of these sacked members, if it is the one that they were justifiably sacked, because their economy will be affected and their families. ASU can plead on their behalf. And if ASU plead, I want to also beg the institutions for which they were working for to still consider them and then caution them not to do what is not right.
All right, so we actually have reports. We have reports that Nigerians spend an estimated $1 billion yearly on medical care abroad for conditions that can be effectively treated within the country. But this was a statement by Dr. Christopher Otabo, the Chief Consultant Orthopedic Surgeon and Chief Medical Director of Alliance Hospital, Abuja. Now, he spoke after he was conferred with an African Medical Practice and Leadership Excellence Award for his outstanding investment in Nigeria's healthcare system by African Stride International. And now this happened in Abuja. Well, he has said that there was the need for increased investment in healthcare infrastructure in the country if the nation was interested in retaining its medical professionals. Now, we'll get to this other part of the story, but looking at this now, Nigerians, according to him, Nigerians spend about $1 billion yearly on medical tourism. Now, not just that, but on cases that can be handled in Nigeria.
You see, it boils down on trust. You can be a wonderful doctor, but the question is, do I trust you? So most of these things could be as a result of lack of trust on the particular medical practitioner that the Nigerian, so to say, have access to. Now, secondly,
so they're saying Nigerians do not trust our health system.
I said not all of us travel abroad. They said most, right? Those who travel spend 1 billion naira. So I'm only assuming that it could be because of lack of trust.
We're saying the same thing now. Some Nigerians do not trust our health system.
Yeah,
That's why they travel. Even for cases that can be handled.
100%. And secondly, too, most can say, I'm traveling on head grants to get visa. But whereas they want to use the opportunity for business trip. So we are Nigerians. So most times we are only looking at the intent. That's what we know, what we hear. But you may not know the reasons why I say I want to fly abroad because I'm having a constant headache. It may not be completely true. Maybe I've got I think what they are trying to advocate is that let us invest more,
of course,
on our health.
If the country is having up to 1 billion naira, according to reports, it could be more, it could be less, right? If we're having that leave our system, our economy, to another economy, that is a lot. And we're talking about the state of the economy currently.
Yes, there are cases too that the medical professionals advise that it should be done overseas.
Now we're talking about cases that can be handled here.
And you feel it can be handled here?
I feel that's a professional.
That's what I'm saying. every professional can fail. When patients are admitted into hospital, most time with the assurances that we can handle it. But along the line, you discover that they say, sorry, we can't continue, right? So it's not that because they are professionals that they have the 100% confidence that whatever they do medically must yield positive results. We have seen cases.
It's the same. You're talking about a chance that these people are actually humans, and there's a chance that it might not be 100%.
Yeah.
The people you're going to meet outside, who are they? Are they not humans? So does it mean that because it's not in Nigeria, there's no chance that it won't be 100%?
No, I think what the medical professional is trying to advocate is that let us have confidence in our medical system. Let us invest more in our medical system. Let us believe our medical system. I think that's the message he's trying to portray, which I subscribe to what he says.
And we're trying to look at some of the reasons this is happening. Because if there's a problem and you want to solve it, you need to look at some of the reasons that trust our medical system here.
Sure.
Because they feel like it's not 100%. Even though you have said that some of our professionals are really, we have good hands here. But the thing is the medical system now. So how can we solve that? That the medical system not being trusted in Nigeria? Why do you think Nigerians do not trust completely our medical system, aside the fact that you have said it might not be 100%?
Some medical practitioners, with all due respect, we have good ones, wonderful ones, are very careless, extremely careless. So I think the carelessness should reduce. Number two, government should, give more attention to the facilities in our medical centers. Resources should be given to them. The medical welfare, should also be improved, because I know most of them, the most time they don't sleep at night. They are really paying a great price to ensure that lives are being, preserved, which they are doing wonderful work. So I cannot subscribe to say they should not be taken good care of. I'm saying that our medical facilities should be improved. We should have more confidence in them. But most of the medical practitioners are careless. So most of them should not also, they should reduce the carelessness.
The way you keep mentioning them being careless, looks like you've had a personal experience.
There are instances where someone will be on drip and then no nurse, the nurse that is supposed to watch will not be there.
Yeah, I think I've had that experience.
So such kind of carelessness can take away life. So if you have experienced that and they ask you to go back again, you may be tempted not to. That's why I said the carelessness. We have wonderful ones that are good and all of that. So I think those ones should be encouraged. Then those who are careless should avoid this carelessness.
Okay, let's look at how much the government is doing now in encouraging, improving healthcare in Nigeria.
Well, government is trying to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, so sorry to cut you. Let's look at this other story, part of the story, and then you answer that question now. Speaking on how to achieve zero medical tourism, it's stated that our medical professionals are leaving en masse. Otabo has said that it was impossible for the country to achieve that feat, where we'll have health professionals not leaving Nigeria at all. Well, he has explained that this can only be reduced through emplacement of conducive environment by authorities. We know that our medical practitioners time and time again have been complaining about the medical environment, conducive environment for them to thrive, especially some of the medical personnel that are in some of these hospitals in our local government, some of those primary healthcare centers. Now you see some of them trying to leave those places, trying to take transfers to, places where they can actually explore what they have been taught in school, places where they can actually have the equipment to work. So there have been cases and there have been talks about our primary healthcare centers not being well equipped. Sometimes you get there, there's one issue or the other, that something that very little that can be handled, you hear there's no possibility of it being handled, and now you have to start moving all the way to the tertiary healthcare institution. So with all of these that have been stated, Now you can answer that question.
You
How
see,
much is the government doing?
You see, primary health care cannot be provided with the tertiary health care facility.
Of course.
So that's why what the primary health care cannot handle, they refer to the tertiary. And I know, for instance, in Rivers State, the government is doing a lot. They've done quite a lot on our health centers. Now, on the issue of our doctors leaving, I believe because very many have lost the issue of humanitarian services. They have lost the sense of, what do I call it? Passion and compassion for humanity. The focus have shifted to money. And that's the big problem that we have. Because, yes, I know that, like in Rivers State, medical doctors are goodly paid. I know compared to their foreign counterparts, those who have left.
So you say doctors in Rivers State are paid better than doctors outside the country?
Of course. Now, why is it more? Like our dollar is, our naira is not very valuable now. So those who are being paid in dollars, the money they are earning is far beyond what our own naira can provide. So my appeal to our medical doctors is that, first of all, know that we are your brothers and sisters. We are Nigerians. And God has given you the privilege to be equipped in helping our medical lives. So abandoning us because of your personal welfare, because of the desire to make more money, is not very brotherly. It's not very lovely.
So if they feel like they're paid peanuts, they should stay back, earn the peanuts.
Because
work without the right equipment,
conducive
environment, and all of that.
They are not living because of lack of equipment.
They have stated it.
No.
Lack of adequate equipment, lack of there not being a conducive environment. That's part of what the doctors said. We had a story like that last week, where it was talked, a brain drain in the medical system was discussed here, where it was stated that doctors are leaving en masse. In fact, we had a guest who said he is also in line with that, and he's about leaving too.
But see, the truth is,
so it's not just about their personal welfare. Do they have the tools to work with, the right tools to work with?
Now it contradicts what the medical practitioner earlier have said, right?
Wow.
He said that because Nigerians, that's what we said now, we don't have confidence in our medical practitioners. And we've talked about the fault. Now, the fault is not just only on government. You get it? 70% of those who are living because of the financial welfare that is abroad. And that's why we are appealing that compassionate heart, that humanitarian heart, that charity heart that medical practitioners used to have and ought to have is gradually reducing. So my appeal is that, you see, when you don't work for money, you will not be comparing yourself with what others are earning abroad.
When you say when you don't work for money, what do you mean?
You see, when your intent is for the service first,
okay,
not what you get, then you will be passionate, you will be compassionate. But here in this case, we now begin to compare ourselves with our brothers who are in the medical field in London, in America, in Dubai.
Do you think that's why we're having this case of about $1 billion leaving the country yearly for medical tourism? Yes, people leaving now. You have stated that you have agreed that some of these hospitals are not adequately equipped. So even things that we can handle here, because of that, people are leaving, and money is leaving.
No.
That's what it means. When they say people are leaving for medical attention outside, it means money is actually leaving the economy.
You see, our medical doctors have to be, most of them have to be sincere. those of us that have them as friends, what they tell you is that what their counterparts are being paid abroad. My classmate left.
Of course, that's one of the
my classmate left 2 years ago. If you see what she has achieved and all of that, it's about the welfare, the money.
Which is one of it.
Good. So what we are appealing is that if government cannot really provide for you.
Why will government not be able to provide what is needed?
See, that's what we are appealing here now. We are saying that our economy is bad, isn't it? We are trying to fix our economy. And in fixing our economy, every areas of government, every Nigerian must sacrifice. So if actually our brothers in the medical profession wants our economy to get better, it's a period of sacrifice. I'm not saying that government should not improve on their welfare. They deserve the very best. But I'm also saying that comparing yourself with other of your colleagues abroad will demoralize you, will discourage you, and you will equally want to leave. Now, I also have a solution, a suggestion to government. Because most of the people who are leaving are not fresh graduates. Are people who have also used our medical equipment to gather experience over the years. So you cannot take it away that the government facilities and the medical facility where you worked has not also enhanced your experience, that you are now becoming resourceful and useful for other countries that you want to go and improve on their medical life. We must also be cautious. So government can come up with a policy before any medical doctor will leave Nigeria unless on a special case. The person shall have worked up to like 4 or 7 years in this country.
Before leaving the country?
Yes, for greener pasture.
Wait.
But if it is for...
You're not talking about doctors who are probably working with the government now. You're talking about doctors in general.
Doctors are doctors.
Doctors in general should have worked how many years?
Minimum of 7 years.
Before they are allowed to leave the country.
Of course. I will not say they can't leave. There is need for medical tourism. There is need for cross-fertilization of idea. There is need for you to settle wherever you desire. But I want to feel that since it is now the norm and the order of the day, under the period of that 5 years, they shall have also recruited new graduates who shall have gathered 6 years experience, which will now prevent the weakness in our medical system. So it will help us.
Okay, so now we do not have, why the focus on doctors when we have other aspects and other areas and other sectors in the country of people who are also leaving en masse? Doctors are not the only ones leaving Nigeria en masse.
Which other profession? We
have other professions. Are you asking which other profession? Are you a Nigerian? We have other people who are trooping out. In fact, the Japa syndrome is a topic in Nigeria currently. So does it mean that we should say in every sector, in every area, you must have worked in Nigeria, as long as you schooled in this country, you must have worked in Nigeria for up to 6 to 7 years before we allow you past the airport?
Yeah, of course. Because you see the
Did you say of course? You agree?
You see, let me come.
Come, please.
Not every industry is as sensitive as the medical profession. Why the medical profession is a burning issue is because it has to do with lives. So our appeal and my appeal to them. And
you're not appealing to the government?
No, I have said...
To improve their welfare?
Yes, I have appealed
to look at the reasons they are leaving the country?
Yes.
And then employment is another thing that they have stated. Now you're saying work for 7 years. Some of them will ask you, where is the job? You know what, I would really like for us to probably revisit this particular topic.
Okay.
I'm going to get to invite you. And then we'll invite a medical practitioner and we'll talk about it again, whether it's in the news. That would be
wonderful.
Whether it's in the news or not, all right?
That would be wonderful.
Right now, let's go on a short break. And when we return, we have other stories on our table for you. Please don't go anywhere.
from the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains. Through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
Every day, our lives are changed by history,
We are one people, all of us.
leaders, politics,
Nobody's ambition is what the blood.
I have fought a very firmly.
natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody, and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human
on the point of order.
Honorable
on them. They are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
Good to know you're still with us. It has been an amazing blowout or extensive blowout right here in the studio with our guest who's seated right here with us. It's Atlantic Blowout, and we have been discussing topics that are trending in Nigeria. One of those topics is this one about the Nigerian army, where the Nigerian army has stated that they are committed to strengthening their relationship with the public to bolster our country's security architecture. Now, they have stated this. I'm talking about the Executive Director of Development Specs Academy, Professor Okechukwu. He has made this statement during a press briefing ahead of the asymmetrical national security challenges. Now, the Army and National Development Roundtable scheduled in partnership with the Nigerian Army Resource Center, that's NAC, on June 24th and 25th, 2024. Now, Professor Okechukwu stressed that the roundtable is part of a series of public engagements that is designed to strengthen public awareness about security challenges. This is an initiative now, the round table, that is actually designed to create more awareness on security challenges. This is more like working hand in hand with the public, working hand in hand with the people to probably get information on what's going on out there, some of the challenges that they're facing, and all of that. So this is actually an initiative, and I would really like to know what you actually think about this particular story. The Army working side by side in collaboration with the people now, the public.
should go ahead.
Yes, please.
Well, I think this is not the first time that the Nigerian Army Resource Center is organizing program for the public. I know I've attended like 2 programs at that center in Abuja. I think they are quite resourceful, they are quite doing well, and I think continuing those kind of enlightenment programs are very, very wonderful. And I know, like the period that I've attended, you see senior army officers, generals, and all that, but you are free to express yourself. So there is no issue of coercion that you can't talk. No, very wonderful system. So I think it's a nice one. Now, looking at the national security, you know, a way of helping our security system. I watched over the news yesterday about 50 lawmakers appealing to the president to see how he can, you know, invoke some section of the Constitution to release the Nnamdi Kanu from continual detention, you know, and that it will help the security challenge in the Southeast and thereabout. I also want to join them. If the release of Nnamdi Kanu is going to help the insecurity situation in the Southeast, I think it should be released.
Okay, that's going to be another topic now. That's kind of deviating. Let's come back to what we're discussing.
We are talking about national security.
Yes, yes, I know.
Yes. Now, these are, you know, security in Nigeria is a holistic thing. Again, few days ago, we heard about the federal government indebtedness of, is it 27 trillion? Some whole amount of trillions as our indebtedness. Now, the first question that comes in my mind was that, what is the impact of this indebtedness on we Nigerians? If we are owing this kind of amount of money and yet we can't have food on our tables, we can't still have good power, we cannot still have good health care, we cannot still have good road infrastructure, where is this money going? So you see, when I advocate the issue of give Nigerians money to run themselves, some people think that is a joke. Imagine that 27 trillion or thereabout, that at least each Nigerians got 5 million naira.
You should borrow to share to Nigeria.
No, the borrowing that you did, what is the effect on Nigerians? So if the effect is not there, well, is it the one that you give to us directly that we used to call it sharing? The human welfare of Nigerians should be the first project as far as this economy is concerned. 27 trillion or thereabout indebtedness when we have no effect on our lives and welfare. Should we clap hand for federal government? The answer is no. So when some of us are saying that the economic measures, the government policies and programs is not effective on our citizens. So that's why we are saying, because it is not having direct effect on us, every 3 months, give to Nigerians at least 1 million naira to help their lives. This will help the economy and the national security of Nigeria. If the economic situation of Nigeria...
sharing money to Nigeria is going to help security?
You call it sharing money.
Giving, sharing, synonyms.
No, you can call it a better way.
You called it give. You called it giving, right?
Yes.
Give to Nigerians. I said share. No, these are synonyms. That's not the focus. Let's come to how that is going to affect
we are talking about national security. Part of the things that leads to insecurity is reaction to poor governance. So when the governance of the day is not positive on her citizens, their negative reactions will lead to insecurity. So you can't throw away the economic welfare of Nigerians when you are talking about security.
And you don't see this as a move that's also going to improve or increase insecurity in our society?
No, you see,
in a case where these guys or these people, I don't want to use gender now, but these people who actually carry out these measures or acts of insecurity now, these people who carry out the acts of the terrorists, the criminals, and all of those people, don't you think that they would, in that time, know that everybody now has money, so I can reach out to anybody, and don't you see this in any way increasing insecurity?
No.
Anyway?
Most of the people who are agitating against government, sometimes it's as a result of poor governance. For instance, I remember one of those times I went for the program at the Nigerian Army Resource Center in Abuja, and we were talking about insecurity, talking about the Niger Delta issues. And I said, how do you expect a man that have crude oil in his community, they have no good road, they have no good pipe-borne water, they have no good health facility, there is nothing to show for the God-given resources in their community, and then all they watch is federal government put up a pipe, collecting the crude to wherever they are taking it, sell it, maintain other communities, other places, provide these amenities that we don't have. So the day I wake up to go and collect that same crude oil to sell, I'm a thief. Is that morally justified?
It's legally justified.
No, because of the oppressive law that makes you a tenant in what you own, a stranger in what you own. You know, so I'm only trying to say that the Nigerian system, we need to be fair to our citizens.
Right.
So until we are fair to our citizens, the issue of insecurity, of course, it is the security operative that they are even oppressing more. Because where a man has oppressed her citizens, where a man has looted the resources of the common man, what will he do to protect himself is to get more security men. And then we don't even have enough manpower. But if you live a very moral, justifiable life, where your brother's economy is not being stolen, where the welfare of the people is being taken care of, you don't even need a policeman.
All right, the total number of billion consumers, this is on electricity now, and it's our next story. The total number of billion consumers stood at 12.33 million in the first quarter of 2024, indicating an increase of 1.78% from 12.12 million recorded in the fourth quarter of 2023. And yes, the first quarter of 2023. Furthermore, on a year-on-year basis, it increased to 9.47%. That's from 11.27 million in first quarter of 2024. Now, the National Bureau of Statistics has disclosed this in its Nigeria Electricity Report. Energy bill revenue generated and customers by discos for the first quarter of 2024 has shown that metered customers stood at 5.9 million, and that's in first quarter of this year. And it indicated a growth, that we had a growth from the previous 5.6 million. That's a growth of about 5.38%, and it was recorded in the preceding quarter of, that's the fourth quarter of 2023. Now, however, in a year-on-year basis, it increased by 11.26% from the figure that was reported in the first quarter of 2023. So metered customers have increased according to this particular story. If we look at the beginning of this story, where it's talking about the consumers rising, that's according to MBS report. Let's look at the first part, like the first paragraph of this particular story, before we actually came down to all of the figures that were being mentioned now. The first paragraph of this story. All right, now let's take a look at all these figures that have been released by the MBS, talking about the total number of billing customers standing at 12.33 million in the first quarter of this year, and it has indicated an increase. That's an increase of about 1.78% from the 12 million that was recorded in the first quarter of last year?
Well, most times our intention all the time in government is revenue generation. And that revenue is always muzzled from citizens. You are aware there was increment in tariff, and then now there's an advocacy, and the president is saying that they should reduce, right? Is that correct? Now, of course, you will expect increment because there was also increment in the tariff. So if it didn't increase, then we would have asked what happened to the increment that you made. You know, but the question is, are 60% of Nigerians, or 50 or 40, are they now enjoying effective power provision? Our focus should not always be on the revenue generation alone. Our focus should be on the welfare, on the service delivery. How has it bettered the common man? Until the service delivery is good enough for the common man, any figure you are producing or bringing, it really do not make much sense. Because if the power industry is effective, because we are talking about reviving our economy, and power is a major instrument for the revival of our almost dead or collapsed economy. So today, I'm expecting that they should be telling us that by now, at least 40% of Nigerians are having effective power now. We are trusting that in the next 2 months, 60% is going to have. We are trusting that in the next 4 months, 80% of Nigerians will have effective power. This will give you a signal that our economy is doing what? Is making progress, because we need the power to revive our dying economy. So my prayer and my encouragement to the power sector is that speedize the rates of providing effective power supply to Nigerians. Don't be revenue conscious. Rather be service delivery conscious that will make the average common Nigerian to be happy. That now we can enjoy good electricity, thereby my pure water business now is thriving. Thereby, oh, my industry, little industry that I have is now working. I'm no longer spending so much on diesel or petrol. So I think this should be our focus, not to give us figure that we make the president be happy with your ministry and your department, that, oh, at least they are raising revenue. Of course, which we see no evidence of this revenue you are raising on the common man. So until the common man has a better service delivery, until the common man begins to see the impact of your services, your revenue is not making any sense to me. So I think they should improve on the service delivery. When you now tell us about the increments of your revenue generation, we will clap hand for you because it is visible on our lives. That's my take.
All right, I think Nigerians do not want to see the MBS report because sometimes it's looking juicy on one side and then on the other side they're like, this is not what I'm seeing at home. So I think Nigerians don't want to see the MBS report, but that was the MBS report anyway. Now, let's look at the next story now. Moving on to the next story. We still have some really nice stories for you. Please do well to actually stay with us. Okay, now this story is on crude oil. Okay, so the Vice President, Oil and Gas at Dangote Industries Limited, has accused international oil companies as the IOCs in Nigeria of plotting to cripple its operations. Now, Edwin has said that the IOCs are deliberately frustrating the refinery's efforts to buy local crude by jerking up the high premium price above the market price. And this has forced it to import crude from other countries as far as the United States with its attendant high costs. Now, Edwin, who disclosed this at a one-day training program for journalists in Lagos, has also blamed the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority for granting licenses to marketers to import dirty, refined products into the country. It's a shock to find out that crude is being imported by Dangote, according to these stories. Please, let's get your thoughts on this.
You see, the crude industry is a conduit pipe for so many big Nigerians. And stopping the business will not be a one-day or one-week arrangement. And I will want to say that it's not very good for us to continue to frustrate investment that is targeted in reducing the costs and the challenges of our PMS. Again, I also want to thank Mr. President for leveraging the opportunity of giving license to private individuals who want to run refineries. I think that was a wonderful one, even though it would take a lot of resources to start up one. So I want to appeal to the mafians who are in that industry to see how they can discourage activities that will not help Nigerians. But again, if Dangote alone is refining, and then they can only buy from Dangote, of course, they will not really enjoy the industry. So they are thinking that instead of us to become a boy or slaves to Brother Aliko Dangote, we must frustrate this effort until it becomes very beneficiary to all of us. So I think that Dangote is in that industry. He knows how to play the politics of that industry. But again, in as much as we know that the local refining of our products, especially within the Niger Delta axis, is illegal. That's the illegal refineries that they are doing right now. I'm aware that the then former Vice President Osibanjo was trying to encourage the local refinery, licensing them for them to refine, because the product that they are refining locally and illegally, with what we heard.
Osibanjo was trying to encourage.
Yes, local refinery.
Okay, locals.
Yes.
Getting into the business.
Yes, okay. Exactly.
But not the illegal refinery, because you have immediately.
It's illegal because the law is not backing it yet. So he wanted it to be legitimatized. He wanted it to be legal.
For Nigerians to also invest in, just like Dangote.
No, not to that standard.
That's locals now, Nigerians.
Not that
getting
one.
Involved.
We are talking about the ones that is AKA called Bofire.
Well, let's get back to your thoughts on this.
The one that is called Bofire.
The artisanal refinery.
Thank you, the artisanal refinery. That's the one he wanted us to license legally. And which I think there's nothing bad about it. If you give them the right environment, these guys are almost giving you up to 80% of what you bring abroad. Because we hear that most of the petrol we buy in most of our filling stations are from such sources. We cannot really say it's correct. But if they are usable and they are wonderful, imagine when government give them the open hands. You may not even need to spend as much as Dangote is investing to open a refinery. And these guys will give us what we want and equally pay revenues now to government. So I'm also thinking that the artisan refinery should be okay, because come to think of it, I'm not saying we are not one Nigeria. We are one Nigeria. But where my big brother comes from, Dangote, they don't have crude oil. Now, but he has come as a businessman to do it. So for a Niger Delta man to invest in the crude business, the refining process, having a crude oil, a refinery, is going to be difficult. So imagine them not being a major player in this industry.
Why would you say it's going to be difficult?
how many of our brothers really have these resources and the strength to have and own a refinery?
We have had recommendations from some Nigerians who have said, what about our state governors coming together, even if it's just 3 state governors coming together and putting together a refinery?
That's also a wonderful one.
So we should be thinking about things like that instead of encouraging artisanal refinery, don't you think?
No. The artisan refinery is less expensive. If government fails, like the way the former president fails, it can be useful to us. Instead of them doing it the way they are doing it, they can give, in fact, state government now can as well also get the license and then see how they organize these local artisans and then
phone, stay connected with us on ATN socials, on Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, on Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1, and also join us on X at Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website at www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you for watching. I am Enidoye Jackson. Coming up next is Open Conversation. Do well to stay with us on Atlantic Television Network.